Tiger fans, what's going on, guys? So I apologize for the video being one day late, and I'm going to not make this one 25 minutes long. We're just going to kind of fly through this one. So the week this was a very disappointing week if you're a Tigers fan, because the Tigers came into this week on the precipice of being 500, and they haven't been over 500 or at 500 this close in, I want to say, since in 21, when right before the All-Star break, when they had a chance, when they played Minnesota in Minnesota for a 4-game series, and they had leads in all 4 of those games and they blew it. And that's kind of how this past week was, where the Tigers, they came in after having that series against the Guardians. They had won 5 of the last 6 series. They dropped 2 of 3 to the Mariners. They had a weird amount of off days. They're playing the Pirates, who were coming into the series kind of limping, because after they started 20-8, they've been really average at best. Their pitching is really slowed up. Their offense hasn't been as good. And you're looking at this week kind of licking your chops like, okay, they're in second place. First place is only a few games back. Cleveland has fallen off. And the Tigers had pretty much took a straight grasp of second place. So you're playing Pittsburgh. You're going to have the Nationals. And this is a week where you're going to make up games, make up ground. And they're going to be 40 games in at the 500 mark, and it's going to be awesome. I think at the 42 game mark last year, obviously we're a couple more games in than that, but at the 42 game mark last year, the Tigers had only won 14 games. So coming into it already, almost a 10 win improvement to that point, 42 games in, I don't know. This was just a week of missed opportunities. So let's jump into it. So the Pittsburgh Pirates, the first game of the series, Michael Lorenzen, again, has a good start. Now, Lorenzen, he's had a couple of really good starts in a row. 7-inning start, 6-inning start. His command has still been a little bit wishy-washy, but he's actually dropped some pitches. So when Lorenzen first came to the Tigers this year, after he had come back from injury, he actually was throwing 7 pitches, because he has like a couple variants of his slider, because Shohei Ohtani showed him like a different grip on a slider, and he's got a couple different versions of his slider. He's got a cutter, he's got a sinker, he's got a fastball, he's got a changeup. Well, what's been working for him over his last couple starts has been his changeup, his fastball, and his cutter, especially his changeup. His changeup has been by far his best pitch, and I don't know why it took him this many starts to realize, keep it simple, stupid, is basically the old adage. And since he's ditched a couple of those pitches, his command has still been kind of wishy-washy, but he's definitely been more precise. He's definitely having way quicker innings, and his strikeouts have gone up, and his swings and misses have gone up, because that changeup is legit. And, if Lorenzen keeps pitching like this, the Tigers, might not only deal Erod at the deadline, but Lorenzen is pitching potentially for an audition for another team as well, which is fantastic. Because if the Tigers can get as much as they can possibly get out of players that aren't going to be here next year, that's just another win for Scott Harris. And seeing what Scott Harris can do with names that you've never heard of before, i.e. Zach McKinstry, Andy Ibanez, you got to put all the faith in the world in him to do it again. So the first game of the series, the Tigers take the first game from the Pirates 4-0, and great game. And you're thinking, okay, clean sweep. Erod's on the bump for the second game of the series, and they're going to take it, no problem. Yeah, well, Erod, you got this. The strike zone in this game was absolutely fucking horrible. I don't remember who was behind the plate, but the guy fucking sucked. It caught right off the rip. Vierling had a misplay in center field. Austin Hedges, of all people, hits a double. Erod gets squeezed like 3 different times that led to runs. This game was just a shit show. It ended up being 8-0, and the Tigers get shut out. And that was a perfect example of a game that the Tigers should have took, regardless of score, because you got your best pitcher on the mound. You're facing a Pittsburgh Pirates team that really has come back down to earth. They're not what their record indicates. And you lose that game to end your homestand. And that's just something you can't do, especially if you're a second-place team in the shittiest division in all of baseball. And Minnesota's only like 3 or 4 games over 500. 500 was achievable. Being 1.5 to 2 games out coming into today, going into this week, which we're going to touch on because this is a massive week, it was unacceptable. So the Tigers had an off day. They go to Washington. This first game of this National Series, what a game. The Tigers hit 4 home runs, McKinstry leads the game off with a homer. Riley Green has a homer. And it was 6-0 before you knew it. Well, all of a sudden it gets to 8-0. It gets about the 6th inning, and you're thinking, okay, well, this game's over with. It's going to be easy. Yeah, no. The bullpen starts to Matt Boyd does Matt Boyd things, and true to Matt Boyd form, I just don't understand what the hype was is bringing this guy back. His last time out, he doesn't even go 3 innings. This time out, he has a no-hitter into the 6th inning. A no-hitter. And I can't even get through the 6th. And the tie between him and the Tigers bullpen, they give up 6 runs, and A.J. Hinch ended up having to use Jason Foley and Alex Lane to get through this game because they got that close at the end. They couldn't afford to drop a game, but they led 8-0. So they get the win. Awesome, great. You're thinking, perfect. They're right in position to take a series. They could take the second game, whatever. Yeah, second game of the series, they lose 2-5. Offense doesn't show up. Piss poor performance. Not hitting with runners in scoring position. It was a joke. I can't believe that they didn't take the second game. Jeimer Candelario this series, all of a sudden, Jeimer sees the Tigers coming to town, and Jeimer turns into fucking Tony Gwynn, and he's hitting everything. He hits a homer. He was like 3 for 3. I bet you he had 7 hits in this series in the 3 games. The dude went absolutely nuts. In the second game of the series, let's see, the Tigers, Alex Faedo pitches this game, and Faedo, again, having problems with the home run ball. Lane, there was just some thorns on the side of the series. Lane Thomas, Jeimer Candelario, they were just a Joey Meneses. They were just a bunch of pain in the fucking ass, and they were just, I don't know, that Nats team, they may not be that good, and I mean, Tigers really aren't that great either, but they may not be that good, man. They got some scrappy hitters on that team, and they got some guys that are really annoying, and they play some teams tough, even though their record isn't that great. But Alex Faedo, again, 3 earned runs, 5 hits, 4 strikeouts. After he was coming off a performance where he set a career high for strikeouts his last time out. He just couldn't make that big pitch. Again, having problems with the gopher ball. He's given up 5 home runs in his 3 starts already. Or 4 starts already. He's given up 5 home runs, which is a lot. So you're thinking, all right, they're going to come out, have a chance to still take the series, and you're setting yourself up for a big week. It's 6-0 before you blink an eye. Nick Maton hits a home run this game. Spencer Torkelson hits a home run this game. Tigers are clawing back. They ended up scoring 4 runs, clawing back with some hits. But this game was pathetic. They loaded the bases twice. Twice. Baez comes up. First pitch. Josiah Gray had 7 fucking walks this game. How do you load the bases twice? One of them with no outs. And you don't score a singular run with that opportunity. That game should have been a fucking NFL game. It should have been the Lions versus the Commanders. It should have been 31-7 with as many runners as scoring opportunity chances they had. Torkelson pops out the bases loaded. Javier Baez, absolutely terrible at bats with the bases loaded. Guys not... And this was the thing that we were seeing a couple weeks ago. Before they had that stretch of, where they took 5 out of 6 series earlier in the year when the offense was really struggling. This is what we saw. There was no killer in this lineup. There was nobody that could put an at-bat together for runners in scoring position. Because the thing is now, is we're seeing this team start to creep in. They're like middle of the pack now for walks. And the Tigers are coming up. They're not the worst team in the league in on-base percentage anymore. They're not the worst team in the league anymore when it comes to drawing walks. They're putting traffic on the bases now. They're doing good things that good offenses do, whether it's drawing walks, whether it's getting guys in scoring position. But they aren't it's the same shit. No one can get a hit with runners in scoring position. And you look at the majority of the runs over the last 2 weeks, Riley Green was shut down the last 2 games of this national series. He had a home run the first game of the series, but he was shut down really for the most part for the last couple of games. And Riley Green with his hot streak, and I'm having almost an 800 OPS, and Torkelson hitting over almost 300 for the month of May, and Riley Green hitting over 300 for the month of May. When one of those two guys aren't hitting, there's no one there to really pick him up because Andy Ibanez has really cooled back down. Even though, but I'm still okay with him getting as many at bats because he plays a good third, he plays a good second. Nick Maton, he hasn't had many hits, but he's at least drawing walks. He had a couple of bats where I think he drew 2 walks, and he had took 13 straight pitches because teams were throwing him so many curveballs, and he couldn't lay off of it that he literally went up there and just kept the bat on his shoulders and didn't even attempt to because teams were like, well, he's going to chase, so he just stood there like a statue and let teams just throw curveballs in the dirt, and he's drawing walks off of it now. And, it finally paid dividend because last game of the series, he hits a solo shot because he finally gets a fastball he turns on for the first time in a while. And, if teams aren't going to make him chase the curveball, then they're going to have to start throwing him fastballs. And now it's on him to not miss and do damage and connect. But you look at the rest of the lineup, Green and Torkelson have been really rolling hot. But Baez has cooled back off. He hasn't had a home run since that JV game where they played the Mets. He went hitless for the series. Jonathan Schoop is worthless. Andy Ibanez has really cooled off. Zach McKinstry, is doing Zach McKinstry things, but he's not going to carry a lineup. Matt Vierling, he had an RBI hit, but, he really hasn't done much. I think he was hitting like 220 coming into this series. So they're scoring runs, yes. They're getting at a little bit better pace than they were, yes. And they're getting on base, sure. But it's only worth so much when your lineup is so top heavy and it's really 2 guys that you're relying on because Baez is so streaky and Matt Vierling, he strikes out so much, He had a home run in this series as well, his 3rd one of the year, but he strikes out so much and he's been like inept to getting a big hit. Matt Vierling's had like 1 big hit all year, and that was that Houston game in extra innings where he hit a home run. That's really been about it. And Nick Maton's been struggling. And like I said, you can't expect Zach McKinstry to carry a lineup. And you can't expect Andy Ibanez to hit 320 for the whole year. It's awesome that Green and Torkelson are doing their thing and their OPSs are climbing and they're basically Green hits a home run and Torkelson hits a home run the following day. It's been pretty much what it is, and those guys are on pace for 20 home runs this season. That's fantastic and good. But if the Tigers, if this season is not going to be deemed a fluke and it's not going to be a repeat of what we saw in 21 where they win 77 games and then they fall off the face of the earth the following year because it was kind of a fluke and you got career years out of certain guys, but your lineup really just overachieved and it wasn't as good as it looked like the year before, which 22 was, some of these guys are going to be here for the future. This isn't like, the last couple of years. Scott Harris has made some trades for some guys that are going to be here. Nick Maton's here. Matt Vierling's here. Torkelson and Riley Green are here. These are our dudes. Javier Baez might not be, but, that's 4 guys. That's a chunk of your lineup. And, if they're going to get to 500 and they're going to even tickle getting into first place and jumping the Minnesota Twins, they have to start hitting runners in scoring position better. And let's talk about this pitching staff. Jesus Christ. You can't expect Erod, a guy with a career 4.05 ERA, to carry this team for the whole season. Because guess what, guys? He's not. It's not like back in the day when it was young JV and you knew every 5th day you had a chance to break any kind of losing streak. You knew every 5th day that this guy was a horse and he was going to go out there and he was going to give you a start, that you had a chance to win. Erod's going to have clunkers. Erod isn't a frontline starter. He's not an ace. Now, he's pitching out of his mind. He's pitching great, and he's pitching well, and he's probably going to get traded. And I'm good with all that. But for the time being, they need to keep getting starts like this out of Lorenzen. But right now, the rotation is 2 guys. And that's it. Matt Boyd has been pitching awful. His command has been awful. He doesn't have a third pitch again. His changeup hasn't been as good as people said it was. He can't get lineups out the 3rd time through the order. Joey Wentz, who I still really like, he can't really get out right-handers to save his life. Whenever he pitches, teams just load up their lineup of right-handers and they make him throw his curveball for strikes and make him throw fastballs inside. Guess what? He can't throw his curveball consistently for strikes. Guess what? He can't throw his fastball inside and bust hitters in because he's always missing glove side up. Guess what? His changeup is still a work in progress. He doesn't really have like a plus third pitch. And then Alex Faedo, his stuff looks as good as it's ever looked. That it's been in the big leagues. His slider's sharp, his fastball's great, but this guy can't stop giving up home run balls, and he's prone to the big inning. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but they need to get something done in this rotation, or this nice little, playing baseball good for right now and getting close to 500. They're gonna be 10 games under 500 in a blink of an eye because Erod's not gonna carry you, and you can only count on Lorenzen for so long. You need one of these three guys in the back end of the rotation to do something, and right now it really hasn't been the case whatsoever. And then you get to some of these arms in the bullpen. Mason Englert, he was so up and down. Tyler Alexander's really not that good. Jose Cisnero, his numbers look okay, but he's been so up and down. It's basically been Foley and Alex Lang getting it done with really big outs. But I don't know. It was just a disappointing week because they were so close to 500. And they should be 500 going into this. If they would be 500 going into this Kansas City series with a chance to beat up on a Kansas City team that hasn't even won 10 games at home yet, I'd be happy right now. But when you have a game like they had against the Nationals, where they had the bases loaded twice and couldn't score a single fucking run out of both opportunities, and then you lose a game to the Pittsburgh Pirates with your best pitcher on the mound, you can't even score him a run against Rich Hill, a guy who's throwing 86. That's bad, man. Like, good baseball teams, and if you are a good baseball team, and this year is not a fluke, and they're not just overachieving temporarily, kind of like how the Pirates are right now, those are the games you win. Those are the games that show you're not a fluke. Those are the games that show you that you are for real. Those are the games that show you that there's actual fucking progress. But that was pathetic. So, this is a big week. Like, legit. This is a put up or shut up week for the Tigers. Because they have Kansas City for 3 and Chicago for 4. And Kansas City I think they might be in the cellar because Chicago has actually been playing better. Yeah, so Kansas City is 14-34. They're 20 games under 500. And their run differential is minus 71 compared to our minus 51. They have had no one in their rotation worth a shit so far. So if the Tigers don't go into KC and score some runs and do some damage, I'm gonna be extremely pissed. Because if they go into KC and don't take this series and go into Chicago with a chance to really bury them and take a split before coming home exactly at 500, that's such a failed week. Because if the Tigers go into these next two series, right, so they have 3 with KC and they have 4 with Chicago. If they don't take at least 4 of the next 7 and they only take 2 of the next 7, I don't see how they're going to come out of this. Because they had that win streak of 5 and they had another win streak of 6. I don't know how many more times we could see a staff that's this depleted and a staff that's really only one pitcher deep that could possibly yet again put together another win streak of that many games of 5 or 6 games. Because it could be kind of flukish, and that could be what it is. This could just be a little blip on the radar of this. And my brother made a good point about this. This national series should show you, if the Tigers do start to fall back off and they do start to creep. Because let's see, Chicago is only 1 game worse than us. I mean, they're 10 games under 500. We're only 4 games under 500. Cleveland's 6 games under 500, and Minnesota's only 3 over. So if the Tigers go 4-7, I think that'd put them at 1 game under 500 going back to the homestand to play Texas, who's a damn good team. But KC is 6-17 at home, and Chicago's 12-13. So this is a massive put up or shut up week, flat out. And if they go and only win 2 games out of these next 7, Cleveland, you're going to be in 4th place. You're going to be in 4th place in no time. And then all this ground that you gain, and let's see, you would be 22. You'd be 22-30. You'd be 8 games under 500. Like, this is a big week, really big week. This goes to show you if the Tigers are legit. Or right now, being this close to 500 and playing as well as they have is just a fluke. So, need more out of the rotation besides just Erod. Need Lorenzen to keep pitching better. They need to do something about, they need one of these young guys, Wentz Faedo, to step up And Matt Boyd needs to somehow put together a good start that doesn't have a blow-up inning in it. They need to get some hits for runners in scoring position because this bullshit of can't score with the bases loaded and no one out needs to stop. So, disappointed this week. From the past week, that should have been where they swept the Pirates, and they should have took 2 or 3 from Washington. And we should be talking about a team that's 500 that's going to be potentially bouncing Minnesota out of first place this week. Straight up, that's what it should be right now. If the Tigers were legit and the Tigers are going to take a step forward this year, that's the conversation we should be having right now. Are we going to bounce Minnesota out of first place this week? But we're not. Now it's, are they legit, and are they going to come into Comerica Park next week almost 10 games under 500? So, not too pleased this week with the play, especially against opponents like the Pirates and Nationals. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Again, I'm sorry for one day late. And next week it'll be Monday because of Memorial Day when I have an opportunity to make my next video. So I got for you guys this week. Have a good one. Go Tigers.